We're back at it again here on Culture Week. Now, yesterday, we dropped a lot about organizational culture, organizational values, and how they helped us in our business. But today, we want to talk a little bit about personal culture and personal values and how they affect the outcomes in your life.
Also, if you're listening or watching this on its debut day, happy Friday.
Ooh, ooh. We're talking leadership this week, and one of the organizations we are so proud to be at the helm of is the Neuroencoding Institute.
We got to co-found the Neuroencoding Institute alongside Dr. Joseph McClendon III, amazing world-renowned neuropsychologist and incredible mentor and teacher. If you're at all interested in learning more about what the Neuroencoding Institute does and what it can do for you, please visit neuroencoding.com.
You're enjoying this episode on Angel Phoenix Productions Podcast Network. To explore a complete lineup of quality programs and media production services, head on over to angelphoenix.com or like our Facebook page at facebook.com/Angel Phoenix Productions.
Fridays, and we record all of them the same day because we're wearing our same outfits. So we are glad to have been with you throughout the week in our same outfits here and celebrating Friday. And I love that we get to end the week out on talking about personal values here. As we talked about culture, and you heard a little bit about there's the culture at large, right? The societal culture, and that influences you tremendously. And we talked about organizational culture, and then we talked about values of culture and aspects of culture, and thinking about our own personal cultures that we engage in. It's important to just take that moment to recognize that there are lots of cultures and sometimes competing cultures. And then we get into role conflict, and that's not what we're going to talk about today. But those different subcultures are important to understand because you are layers on layers, right? If you are participating at all times in lots of different, right? If you live in the US like we do, there's the American culture, then there's your state or county or region culture. Then there's like your neighborhood culture, right? Like Northwest Reno is different than South Reno, and they'll both tell you there's different cultures, there's different vibes. It's even reflected in what our guests at the restaurants buy. So there's different culture. Then there's culture of a school, one school, even within one classroom. Anytime that there's a group of people, we're going to have at least somewhat of a signature culture emerge that's an amalgamation of everybody bringing all their layers of culture. So it can be pretty intense when we think about it from that angle.
Well, it can be easy to then go forward and lose yourself in the midst of everyone else's cultures influencing your personality and ultimately influencing your character, right? How you show up in the world is heavily influenced by these outside forces. And so we went to a conference in 2019 called Date with Destiny by Tony Robbins. And we had the opportunity to dig in deep onto our own personal values, right? What's the culture that we want to espouse? Not what has been put on me or what I've learned or the values and the standards of behavior that I put out there in the world, but what really matters to me and how do I want to show up if it were all up to me, not necessarily up to those cultures that are at play in the patterning of my personality and my behaviors.
I think it's so powerful when you have that moment of realization that like if culture influences me tremendously, and culture is made up of assumptions and beliefs and values and my perception and perspective of shared experiences, then I can change it. Like I can choose my values. I can choose.
You got the power.
Yeah, that's right. You got the power. And that's like that moment is just so powerful because you realize that you can change it. It's not very easy and you've been ingrained in your social patterns and your cultural patterns for a long time. But, and good news, there's lots of them you probably want to keep, right? Like there's lots of values and orientations and patterns of behavior and beliefs and assumptions that you already have that you want to keep, but there's probably some you also want to change. And that power, that recognition that you can change them was what was so eye-opening for us at Date with Destiny. And we realized that the power of values in our organization before we realized really the power of crafting and choosing your own values in your personal life and how much you can dictate your own personal culture. Man, that was big for us. And then going through the exercise at that conference, I mean, I'll never forget it. It was absolutely incredible.
I think there's never been a time where personal culture and really being grounded in who you are, what you you stand for and what you believe in has been more important. I mean, with the rise of basically a brand new reality being our digital reality in these last 20 to 25 years, there's now two forces at play. There's your everyday who you are, and then there's this perception, this online persona that you have that is being more cultivated, right? So how do you make sure that your online presence and your in-person reality are in alignment? Well, figuring out your personal culture and your values and then allowing them to bleed into both places can help you to stay authentic in a time when it's really hard to know what's real and what's not.
Oh man, the two congruent realities are merging. That's what I imagine as you say that. And then hopefully as you craft and choose your own values, as we did at that conference, then you can merge those and you can be more authentic, which for so many of us is the goal these days, is to have the online persona be pretty darn close to who we are in real life, even if sometimes it's messy or ugly or boring or really intense. Being able to be that authentic yourself online starts with being able to be clear on what you stand for and who you are, which means aligning and figuring out your values. So definitely worth thinking about as you head into your weekend today.
We have had the best time getting to discuss culture with you all this week. Thank you for joining us here on the Kay and Shy Show. And as always, this comes at you with love from your sisters,
Kay and Shy.
This podcast was a production of Angel Phoenix Productions. Explore more episodes of this show or other great shows on the Angel Phoenix Podcast Network by visiting angelphoenix.com. The views expressed in this show do not necessarily represent those of Angel Phoenix Productions or its advertisers and may contain language that's unsuitable for younger listeners.